Casey spent the next 3 days on the planet with his father. The two of them spent 2 days researching wildlife. You know, Dad, Corina would have loved to be doing what we're doing right now. Right. She probably knows what all these animals are. I don't care what they are, I just wanted to see how abundant they are, whatever they are. Jard said they were overabundant, and I wanted to see what he was talking about. Are you counting them? Because I can't imagine keeping count when they all run away. What do you think about all the noises at night? There have been some strange noises. Do you think those noises are coming from animals? Of course, they are. There appear to be a lot of them, but there's no way to get a real count. I wonder how Jard figured there were so many. The last day, Casey, his father, and Jard took a trip into the mountains to see what and how Jard determined the mineral content Jard spoke about earlier. Casey was in awe by the height of the mountains, and some of the sheer cliffs on their sides. With exception of the small rocky cliffs against the back wall, Wheel was mostly flat. Jard pointed out different areas where he said contained iron, copper, and other type of natural elements they could use. Jard said, they are everywhere, and we would have no problem mining them. When they got back to the pads, Casey and Serena returned to Wheel. The remaining crew stayed behind to continue maintenance on the bots, and to do some more exploration. His father was not anxious to get back to the lower decks and stayed behind to help. When he and Serena got back, he sent Claire back to the planet after loading the craft with supplies and tents for shelter. Just as he finished, he saw Corina walking by. He ran over and picked her up and hugged her. She asked, "What did you find?" "We found the pads were in good shape and usable. We found a colony of about 50,000 inhabitants living on a coast next to a big ocean. The ocean was like nothing I have ever seen. I could never imagine so much water. Even the books we read in school couldn't prepare me for that. The coast itself was wide sandy beaches, and just off the beach were groves of different kinds of tropical fruit. It was amazing, except for the inhabitants." He explained to her about the rest of the trip and sadly told her about Caesar and the evil acts he committed against the colony. "After we took over the city, we put Caesar in a locked room and set the CR to guard him. He tried to escape, and the CR killed him by accident." "You were involved in a murder?" "No, the bot was malfunctioning and killed him. So, it was an accident. Not that I was too concerned about it, though. He was a very evil man." She looked at him curiously and said, "All right, Honorable. Dad and I went looking around to see how abundant the wildlife was. You would have enjoyed that. Maybe we could do that when things settle down a little. What do you think?" "I think that would be great. Right now, I'm on my way to meet Basil in the Room of Knowledge. Want to come along?" "Sure." When they got there, Basil was arguing with the short skinny doctor, who was explaining what simple reading skills it took to understand the manual regarding the devices. The manual didn't say your mental capacity would increase to 60 or 70%, nor did Arnie say that. Both he and the manual said your mental capacity would increase by 60 to 70%. That's a big difference. When someone enters the device without a specific purpose, it will transfer information regarding one's most recent concerns. For example, if someone were having concerns about the quality of air, everything the ship's database contains on air quality would be transferred during their stay in the device. Otherwise, someone might exit with a greater understanding of dirt, or checkers, or the perfect souffle. "I'm sorry. I guess I was excited, and I'm old. It must be the light in here, hard to see, hard of hearing, you know." The tall, fat doctor said, "Yep, he's right. Sorry, you will not become superhuman libraries of thought." Casey was both disappointed and relieved at the same time. He thought something was wrong with him when he struggled to figure certain mechanical problems out, and now, disappointed because he would not become a superhuman thinker. The doctor continued, "When used for general purpose, without identifying a subject, the device only enhances the mind with knowledge a person already has the natural propensity or general aptitude for. Otherwise, when specified, The devices can provide mass amounts of knowledge and understanding when specifically directed. When you and the others entered the devices for the first time, each of you, except for Ian, selected specific areas of understanding. As Casey listened, he became more confused. He asked, "Am I going to become a genius, or not?" Everyone looked at him. The doctor answered, "That depends on how your brain handles the information you received from the device. There's still an element of mental capacity. One needs to make sense of all the data implanted. Depending on the complexity of the information implanted, and the ability of the individual to comprehend, someone may learn certain information, but not understand its natural applications. What if you learn through the device what ball bearings are? After spending a couple of nights in a memory device, you might know what they are, but you might be void of all the different applications a ball bearing might have." Casey said, "Okay. Am I going to become a genius?" The doctor looked at him again, and said, "I doubt it." Casey kept quiet after that. The doctor informed Basil how the devices had specific attributes designed for him, or the senior elder. "A device has a learning curve prepared just for you, Basil. The beds were designed with certain defaults for the senior elder, including advanced knowledge of the ship itself, the processes to land it, and all the different leadership roles once the Ark is situated on the planet. Mr. Pascal, you already asked specifically for knowledge of how to land wheel. So, you should have that covered, but there's a considerable amount of knowledge yet to be implanted, and again all of it reserved for the senior elder." After talking further with Arnie, he explained that for you to receive that information, you only need to tell it to provide it. The tall doctor, Gary, asked, "Would you like to re-enter the device and have that information uploaded?" "Not right now. I'll do it tonight." "Thanks, Doctor. I know we still have a lot to learn, all of us." "Yes, sir." Unlike Casey and Basil, Corina had no concerns about understanding the knowledge she gained from the device. She now had an unnatural understanding of wildlife and forestry. She knew 90% of the animals in the books, their habits, and habitats. When she discovered new animals, she knew all about them. Casey knew she was already a genius, as was Handel, in his own way. Corina perceived Casey was not comfortable about anything he was hearing, and said, "Don't worry, hun. You're every bit as smart as anyone else on board." She sealed her comment with a kiss. Basil asked again about putting others into the devices. The doctors reassured Basil anyone could use the devices. Only, they suggested the rest of the ancients should be the next to use them. After the ancients, they recommended inserting all the teachers on board and set the machines to transfer information on new areas of teaching. Because once they were on the planet, the whole concept of teaching would change. Basil became a little curious about what the doctors were telling him. How did they know so much? "How do you know all of this? It's not like we already knew what we would need once on the planet. I assumed we would figure those things out once we got there." The three doctors became quiet and headed for the door. "Stop. You put yourselves in the devices, didn't you?" The medium-height, handsome doctor, Will, said, "Yes, we did. We thought it prudent to experiment and see what would happen if we did." "I suspected as much, and you did so without my permission?" That same doctor answered, "Yes, sir. We thought it might be helpful." "Well, I'm beside myself." The short skinny doctor, whose name was Ted, said, "Sir, we did it for the crew. We did it for scientific study. We needed to know how to proceed. Besides, Gary said we should do it, and he's the lead physician." Gary answered, "Ted, there's enough blame to go around. We all elected to insert ourselves into the devices. Not only did we ask for specific knowledge, we asked for understanding how to proceed with the best results. We didn't know what that would do for us, but we did ask." Basil said, "Okay, doctors. Despite the accusations flying around, I'm elated you enhanced your minds for us all. I'm curious. Please tell me what kind of knowledge you have gained from your expeditions?" Gary said, "Besides a greater understanding of how to put these machines to maximum use, I asked for some medical knowledge. Sir, Over the years, I've had patients bleed out because I was not fast enough to stitch blood vessels, particularly vessels leading to and from the heart. I specifically asked for an advanced ability to stitch. Now, not only do I understand how to do so with greater ease, I can sew a dress in the matter of an hour. He didn't plan to reveal that information. Nonetheless, the entire room stared at him, and not one person responded. Basil was more amused than anything else. He said, "Well, Ted, what do you have to say for yourself?" "Well, as Gary said, I understand how to use the machines to their most profitable capacity. Then I asked to be uploaded with an advanced knowledge of medicines, so it has given me a superior knowledge of pharmaceuticals." Ted was not only a doctor, he was the leading pharmacologist on board. The handsome doctor, Will, said, "I too have gained advanced knowledge of these machines and how to put them to their best use. Otherwise, I didn't ask for anything specific, and, now, I have this urge to grow vegetables. Sir, I've concluded the soil on board this ship will only last another 20 years. The Lightning has not been producing enough nitrogen to sustain it any longer than that. We will starve to death soon afterward." Basil said, "I guess I overreacted. It's good that you used them in the way you did. I should have suggested it." There was a moment of silence, and then all three of them confessed that they also requested the knowledge designed for Basil alone, but the device only gave them enough information to gain a cursory understanding of those things reserved for the senior ancient, and because their devices recognized that neither of them were the senior ancient, the one device gave Will, the handsome doctor, who didn't specify a particular subject, a 15-minute nightmare. Gary explained how he wet his pants just before they woke him up. Will explained, "I was standing on the keep layer and the ship was burning all around me. The soil was on fire and I was running for my life. That's when I discovered the soil would only last another 20 years. I stopped to put it out by urinating on it. It was so real." Basil looked at the three of them, Will twice, and said, "All right, pioneers, once we land, put the rest of the ancients and the teachers through the process. When you get to the teachers, start with the upper grades first." Basil motioned for Corina and Casey to follow him. "Casey, would you like to join us in the central command station?" He followed Basil and Corina to one of the motor carts. While on the way, Casey filled Basil in on his trip to the planet. The command center sat atop a large compartment 20 feet above the floor. Casey asked, "Why is it sitting up so high?" Basil answered, "I have 2 engineers looking into that now. Inside the center is an elevator leading down into the lower section. They're down there investigating." Once inside the center, they found 3 historians and several engineers busy at different stations. Those engineers included 2 of the lead engineers on board Wheel. One was the senior engineer by the name of Donald Hardy, and the other was Serena Manchester, who joined Donald after returning from the planet. They were standing in front of the elevator and approached the 3 once they entered the center. Casey said, "Hi, Serena." Basil asked, "What did you find below?" Donald answered, "We found a warehouse of sorts. It contains several backup systems to replace these up top should they malfunction. There is also shelving from floor to ceiling containing circuits and other supplies. We also found a vault with thick steel walls, enclosed in a force field. I think it is an after-steering compartment." "That's interesting. Does it look functional?" "Yes. You should go down and activate it. I'm certain it will take an ancient to bring it online." "I will, but right now, I want to figure out how everything works up here. You know, Basil, it's difficult to comprehend the level of scientific knowledge the builders had 3,000 years ago. They did things that were beyond even my ability to understand completely. Could you supply me with a crew to help me catalog and figure everything out? There's a library of manuals down there. Sir, I could spend a couple lifetimes trying to figure it all out, but it would go a lot faster if I had a crew to help." "Donald, put a team together and do what you need to do. And once you have a team together, I want all of you to spend a couple nights in the memory devices. I realize a lot of this technology is beyond our complete understanding. Those beds will go a long way in resolving a lot of problems. Afterward, I want you to keep me updated on what you find. All right, thank you, sir. Oh, one last thing. There are 3 different hallways leading away from the lower command center. Each one leads to a large compartment. They're similar to the after-steering compartment, including force fields. All 3 are holding a fusion cell. Apparently, they're replacements for our sun should it expire. There's a large stack of manuals explaining how to activate them. Well, don't activate them. They're not important at this moment. Get your crew together and figure things out, okay? As soon as Donald and Serena left, Rose, one of the other engineers in the center, approached the 3. She said, "We're ready to release the empty tubes. We counted them, and there are 3,060 ready to eject. Do we need to vacate the dome before we release them?" "No, the dome will remain airtight while they exit the craft." Rose led Basil to a panel. "You only need to flip those 2 switches to eject every empty tube on the Ark. I don't think we will need them again. Shall we proceed?" "Yes. Set them afloat." Her voice came over the loudspeaker. "Please move away from all empty tubes. We're planning to jettison them to make more room in the main dome. You have 2 minutes to move out of the way." 2 minutes later she ejected the empty tubes from the craft, which created a significant amount of space. The command center was so advanced it was mind-boggling. Basil stayed to talk with Rose while Corina continued to show Casey around. As she showed him the different stations, his mind drifted off to the archives, particularly the history books from Rome he brought back with him. He was hoping to find a quiet place to sit and review them. She asked, "Casey, are you paying attention?" "I'm sorry, I was thinking about the records we brought back from the colony, but you have my full attention now." Corina pointed out a particular station. "This is the sensor system. It can spot objects within a light year of the craft. They appear as dots on the screen. As you can see, there are several dots in orbit below us. I don't know what they are, but we can see them." Casey said, "Those are asteroids. The large one there is a small moon, or what's left of a moon. I suspect it's the same one that destroyed the other Arks. That one is another ship." He stopped that to study it for a moment. "That shouldn't be the..." He touched the small blip on the screen and said, "Visual, please." A hologram projected from the station and centered on the object. He shouted, "Basil. What is it? What are you doing? Where did the hologram come from?" "That's not important. Look." He pointed to another dome-shaped craft floating in space. "That's the dome from one of the other ships. It's floating in low orbit." Wheel interrupted, "Mr. Hill, there are 10 domes on the planet." Casey said, "Okay. Wheel, I know that you have created a topical map of the planet so far. Can you give us a more detailed map of the planet, including any humans that might be down there?" "Yes, I can see the whole planet. Are you specifically interested in other human activity, or the other 10 domes I am in contact with?" "We want to know everything about the planet. That includes domes, humans, and wildlife, mostly humans and their locations. First, 2 of the domes are occupied, although the domes themselves are dormant, inactive. There are 3 next to one another, but one is completely void of life. There are 7 other domes around the planet, every one of them unoccupied and dormant." "Are there other humans on the planet?" "Yes. There are 22 cities on the planet. Only 4 of them are inhabited. I cannot comment on wildlife. There is so much wildlife, it would be impossible to identify all of it." The hologram presented a map with blue lights where the other domes were situated and red lights where the cities were situated. Basil, Casey, and Corina were dumbfounded. Casey asked, "Wheel, you said all the domes are dormant. Are they in working order?" 2 are broken up, but their command centers are complete. The other 8 are operable. Basil asked, "Why didn't you say anything until now?" "It wasn't important to landing on the surface. I would have mentioned it once I was situated on the planet. That is the normal process. You should concentrate on landing before you make contact. You don't know if the inhabitants of the planet are hostile and we should be on the surface before that is determined." All right, Wheel, but in the future, don't keep anything from us. You can tell us and allow us to make that decision. It was not yours to make. That is my programmed procedure, but I will comply, Elder Pascal. A discussion took up the next hour, as everyone in the command center had different ideas about what they should do. In the end, they all agreed they would follow procedure, concentrate on landing Wheel, and get themselves situated. Afterward, they would research the other cities and domes. Since the one dome was in orbit, they concluded they should investigate that one immediately. Casey asked Wheel, "There is a dome orbiting this planet. I assume you did not include that one in your map. Can you tell me if there is anyone on board? Does it have an atmosphere? Is it operable?" The dome, Charlie 9, is in good working order. It contains sufficient atmosphere, but has no life on board. Casey said, "I wonder if it has been floating in space for as long as we have. I guess no one on board could set it on the planet. We need to go over there." Corina and Basil stood staring at Casey. Casey asked, "What's wrong?" Basil answered, "Casey, we have yet to figure out this command center. You walked in as if you'd been here before. You seem to know your way around better than I do, and I was supposed to be given the advanced knowledge of how it works. I find that a little curious." "Wow, I just knew what to do. Besides, if I remember correctly, you only asked about landing Wheel, not how it all worked. That's what the doctors said, anyway." Basil answered, "You're going to take my place one day, aren't you? I better not catch any shadows sneaking in my room at night." "Mr. Pascal, no one could ever take your place, and if you recall, I asked for knowledge about all the equipment, and now the entire command center seems familiar to me. So, while you concentrate on the landing process, I would like to get on that other dome. It would be nice to find out if it's still functional, as Wheel said it was. I'm sure it doesn't belong to the colony we discovered on the planet. According to their records, they only made it out with the 5th layer, and the first craft to enter orbit was destroyed by the moon. That means it must belong to another group of humans." Basil said, "Get a crew together and the two of you can go inspect the craft. Hold on." He walked over to a counter and picked up a small box. As he handed it to Corina, he said, "Here, take these sat phones for you and the crew, and if you don't mind, write the number and associated name and tell them the phone is assigned to them. Give the list to Char or me, whoever you see first. Char is keeping track of them and should have a list of everyone she has given a phone to, and their numbers. Please inform your crew they should carry it with them at all times from now on. I plan to give one to everyone once we're on the planet, but I'm only giving them to those who might need to use one, until then." Casey and Corina pulled Donald and Serena from what they were doing to join the crew, along with 3 other engineers. They boarded a craft, and Casey asked, "What's your designation, craft?" "My designation, or name, is Zoom." "Zoom? What kind of name is that?" "May I speak without condemnation, sir?" They all looked at each other, never expecting a machine to speak in such a way. "Sure, please do. My programmer was just too comical. She gave me that designation. I am sure it should have been Bill, but every time I try to say it, I say Zoom, Zoom Zoom. You can give me a new name if you desire. You only need to say, your designation will be Bill from this moment forward." "I like Zoom." "Yes, sir. What is our destination?" "Show me your sensor array. See that object there?" He pointed to the object on the screen that represented the other dome. "Yes, that is another arc designated Charlie 9. Would you like to go there?" "Yes, please." As Zoom approached, he asked, "Sir, there are several available landing spots. Did you want a particular one?" "Yes, the closest one, please." Once inside the craft, the crew found it in perfect order. Serena pointed out the tube containing the CRs. She said, "Only 2 CRs have jettisoned from the craft. The third CR in line was broken in 2. Casey said, "That explains a lot. The CR we found in Rome must be one of the 2 missing. Let's get them freed and send them to the planet. He entered the tube and approached the broken CR. It was damaged beyond repair, except for parts. He spoke to the one behind it with the number 86 on it. CR-86, are you functional? Yes, sir. I am. Are you trapped? No. CR-74 is inoperable, and I could not exit until he does. Well, can you see he can't exit? He's broken in half. Can you move him? I can, but only if instructed to do so. Otherwise, I will wait for his repair. CR-86, please follow my instructions. Push CR-74 out the hatch in front of you. Proceed to the planet. There's a group of CRs on the surface who established landing pads for another craft. Go to their location and report to the engineers standing by. Do not establish any more pads. You will help to maintain those already established. Relay that information to those behind you. Do you understand? Yes, sir. I do, but you're not authorized to make such a command possible. What? You are not authorized to make such commands without proper authority. Please find someone with proper authority or obtain it yourself. Casey called Basil, who gave him, Corina, and the engineers full command of the C9 dome. Casey re-entered the tube and had some words with CR-86. 5 minutes later, he said, once I exit this tube, proceed as ordered. Casey left the tube, and the CRs were on their way. He, Corina, and the engineers spent little time looking around. The craft appeared to be in good operating condition. They found 2 skeletons. Both looked like they fell to their deaths. Corina said, we should set this dome on the planet. After she said that, they made their way to the command center. The command center appeared to be in good working order, too. They returned to Wheel and went straight to its command center. Once there, they suggested Basil send a crew of engineers back to C9 and prep it for entry. Basil agreed and sent the engineers back to the other dome for further inspection. He gave them full control of C9. They weren't gone over 3 hours when several lights went off in the command center on board Wheel. Basil and Corina got nervous, but Casey knew what it was. The engineers we sent back to C9 have activated the landing sequence. Probably, pushing buttons, they shouldn't have. Don't worry, landing the craft is automatic. It's not complicated once the layers have been released. The only problem is, where will it land? Corina asked. What do you mean? It needs a big enough semi-level piece of property to land on. Otherwise, it won't be level. I assume it could break up. Casey pulled up another screen. This is the view from the other dome. We can watch where it lands from here. Just then, a craft flew in front of the camera. They could see it contained 5 engineers. The 2 in front had a worried look on both their faces. Casey just shook his head. What can I say? Basil said, I'll talk to them later. I want to see where C9 lands. They watched as the dome broke through the atmosphere and descended. It landed in the ocean, which was surprising. Once it landed in the water, the camera went dead, so they turned on other cameras inside the dome. It looked fine. They assumed its elders directed the dome to land in the ocean and died before they could bring it down. Basil asked the engineers about the screw-up, and none of them accepted responsibility. He sent them to the planet, to the dome to finish what they started. As they left, Basil said, you know, it would have been nice if we could have jettisoned the empty tubes before you landed the dome. They didn't say a word. Rather, they hurried out of earshot. When the engineers got to the dome, it was floating on top of the ocean, 5 miles away from where the small colony was established. 6 hours later, they contacted Basil. Donald had turned over the investigation on board Wheel over to Serena. She was more than capable. He felt he was needed on board C9, and he wanted to make sure there were no more mishaps. After 3 hours inspecting C9, he contacted Basil. The dome is full of supplies, even those supplies that should have jettisoned when the craft entered orbit. It also contains 3 more fusion cells stationed just outside the command center. Sir, this is not one of the other 2 crafts. Apparently, there were 4 ships sent and not 3. It looks as if the other layers were correctly disengaged. I would expect to find them someplace on the planet. We found no more bodies, just the 2. Sir, I suspect that the 2 who died on board were left behind to land the dome. It looks as if they fell from a 2nd-story platform. Both are, more or less, a pile of dust in the shape of a skeleton. What would you like us to do with them? Basil answered, Wheel tells us there are 10 arks on the planet, not just the 3. Regarding the 2 victims, pack them up, and we'll send them up one of the funeral tubes on board Wheel. All right. 10 more arks. That should be interesting. Now, could you please send at least another dozen engineers down to help with the survey? Yes, Don. I'll send another dozen. With all the people getting involved in their discovery of the planet and the other arks, it will be tough to keep it quiet. Basil was still worried if word got out, the upper level would fill with curious citizens like a flood. The pads were ready. He could set the landing process in motion and deal with the citizens once they were on the planet. He considered the hysteria that would create, but it might be the best option. Once everyone was secure in their compartments, they would be on the planet before they could react. Basil gathered everyone inside the dome. We need to land. We're ready to do so, and we need to get down before too many people discover our situation, and when they do, they'll flood the dome. I would like 10 volunteers to join me in the central command. The rest need to gather your families and return to your compartments. I will initiate the landing process in 3 hours. That should give everyone on the craft time to get home, or someplace safe. Casey, Corina, and 8 professionals joined Basil in the command center. Once they were in position, Basil sounded the alarm, sending everyone to their living compartments. 1 hour and 45 minutes later, he came across the ship's speaker system, pleading with anyone still not in their compartment to go there now. The sensory system did not locate anyone outside the compartments. Casey said, You need to tell them, Basil. Everyone is in their compartments and locked down. So, it can't hurt, and if there should be any unusual motion, people will panic. Right, I planned to tell them as soon as they were all situated. Basil came over the intercom again, Citizens of Wheel 17, we have reached our destination and are beginning the landing process. I'm certain all of us will experience some unusual movements and motion. I'm sorry for the short notice, but there was no other option. If you sense motion, don't be alarmed. It's just part of the landing process. Welcome home. Basil walked over to the main panel and said, Wheel 17, please acknowledge. I acknowledge Elder, Basil Pascal. What is your command? Wheel 17, I want you to initiate the landing sequence. Please contact the CRs and locate the landing pads for the layers and notify me when you have done that. Yes, sir. CRs located, and pads are available for landing. Would you like me to begin separation and entry? Yes, please. Sir, you must put your hand on the panel before I can proceed. I will need to print you. When you do, look straight ahead so I can observe your retinas. It is just a precaution. Basil put his hand on the panel, and a beam of light came out of the same panel shining into his eyes. Basil shouted, Ouch! What was that all about? Wheel answered, I needed a sample of your blood. So, I pricked your finger. With that, I can determine whether you are authorized to start the landing sequence. What if I was dead and someone else needed to start the landing sequence? Sir, do you want me to spend the next 2 hours explaining how and what would have to be done to accomplish that? Just know, there is a contingency for that. No. How did the engineers on the other dome land without going through all of this? Your identification is only needed to verify that the landing process can be started. Once that is done, anyone can complete it. Apparently, the senior elder had started the process and never initiated the actual landing of the other dome. Would you like me to halt the process and find out? No. Please continue with the landing sequence. Yes, sir. Obviously, One of the two skeletons on board C9 was the senior elder. The room filled with soft music. Basil shook his head. In my whole life, I never would have imagined the sense of humor some of these builders got away with. W17 replied, I like that song, sir. Would you like me to turn down the volume? No, I guess not, if you like it. What's the name of the song? Moon River. Halfway through the song, a row of lighted buttons came up from the console in front of Basil. There were 5 green and 1 red. The green ones were numbered 1 through 5. The red one did not have a number. As he pushed the first button, the river layer detached from the ark and floated away. As he pushed the others in sequence, the other layers began detaching from the craft. As the group looked up, they saw each layer speeding away from the dome, and light up in a blazing descent as they entered the atmosphere. Corrina shivered. I hope nothing goes wrong. I would hate to lose anyone, even one. That would break my heart. Basil answered, it will be all right. I saw everything I expected to see when landing. It's all automatic, so there will be no human involvement to mess it up. It was a long, 45 minutes of soft music before W17 spoke. All layers are in place, sir. We achieved 100% success. Just then, Basil received a frantic call. What in the world are you guys doing? Why didn't you give us notice that you were landing the ship? Basil looked at Casey. Uh-oh. Then he responded to the caller, sorry about that. We were so engrossed with landing. I forgot to warn you. Is everyone okay? Alan, the excited caller said, well, we had to run for our lives, but we got out of the way just in time. Now, since you have sent all the layers down, do you plan to land the dome as well? Because we found a clearing, the CRs created for the dome portion of the ship. It's a half-mile away from the other pads. Are there any CRs over at that site? Yes, there are 3 of them standing around it. Thanks. We're initiating the landing of the dome now. Get everyone out of the way. Yes, sir. Basil said, Wheel 17, please contact the CRs and find which ones are at the landing pad for this dome. I have contacted them already, and we're clear to land upon your command. Wheel 17, please proceed to land. You only need to push the lighted red button to start the landing process. When he pushed it, the dome shifted gravity, and the bottom portion of the dome positioned itself towards the planet. As they entered, the whole craft lit up from striking the atmosphere. 15 minutes later, it sat down softly on the pad. All the hatches opened, and air ducts filled the dome with fresh air, including the command center. Once on the ground, Basil contacted the professionals at the other dome. We have landed the dome, and it went as planned. Have you found out why your dome landed in the water? Donald, the lead engineer, answered, yes, we did. At the bottom of the ocean was a CR. He, or someone directed the dome to land in the ocean. The bot swam up and was banging on the base of the dome when we found him. He's still there, and we're trying to get him to swim to shore. Landing it in the water was a perfect decision. You should see it. It's so beautiful with a walkway all around it, and the ocean, the first I have ever seen, is magnificent. Mr. Pascal, do you remember when you were in elementary school, and they told us about fishing? I have never seen a fish, and I want to go fishing. I remember. And there will be many opportunities to do those kinds of things in the future.